Back on Steele and Vance, as promised, we have a lot to dive into, politically speaking, as a province.
Well, thank you very much, Premeir David Eby, who said, he wanted to hit the ground running, and he's like on a marathon, dropping new legislation. And anyway, there's a lot to unpack. So we have a legislative correspondent at our disposal.
Yes, we
and
do.
Rob Shaw is the Chek political correspondent. Rob, what's going on?
Well, Premier David Eby said he would hit the ground running, but really his pace after a few days is more like a sprint. It's kind of like he's shot out of a political cannon with the number of announcements he has been making here. It started on the day he was sworn in with announcements about affordability, $100 hydro rebate, amongst other things, low-income rebates as well, almost $800 million right there. And then he led directly into public safety, crime, prolific offenders, street disorder, random attacks, with announcements on those programs backed by Vancouver Police and the Vancouver Mayor and others. And then into the issue of housing, with new legislation that is going to give the municipalities a chance to meet their housing targets. And if not, the province gets the ability to Bigfoot them out of the way, approve housing projects, rezoning of communities if a municipality does not meet its target. So there's going to be a new minister of housing as well, and a dedicated ministry that's going to have a lot more powers to handle the housing supply issue under David Eby. And then near the end of the week, he rounded it out with $230 million in funding for new RCMP officers. He says will allow smaller communities in particular to staff the force up to the size it should be, handle regional units on homicides, child exploitation, things like that. So public safety, affordability, housing. David Eby showing very early on he knows the public is upset about these issues. They are crises his government is facing, and he spent more than $1.2 billion actually on these promises in the first few days. So David Eby trying to live up to that moniker of a man of action. He certainly has hit the ground running. He's running up quite a tab on his promises here as well. Back to you guys.
Rob Shaw, boy, that's setting the table for us. There is Rob Shaw, our correspondent,
and it's like
here.
A full meal with several courses, the entree and dessert and all the rest of it. So should we talk? Let's start with the housing, because on top of that, David Eby also announced some changes to the speculation tax. There's a lot more communities that are going to be included in that. Like Squamish, Lions Bay, Duncan, North Cowichan, Ladysmith, Nanaimo, West Kelowna, many, many, many.
West Kelowna.
Yeah. So what they're trying to do ultimately is they know we're in a housing crisis. Renters have nowhere to rent. People who want to buy a home can't afford to buy a home. We do have a housing crisis. It's been going on for years, which is why we're going to have the BC Liberal leader, Kevin Falcon, coming on just a couple of minutes.
We're going to talk with him about the crime piece as well, because you and I talk about prolific offenders constantly here. Like putting up the visuals of that repeat offender smashing the TD Bank windows. Like every time we see that, it's like
twice, right?
And released again. So it's like, how are we going to get tough on these things? And then the RCMP comes into play, and that throws another,
Well, there's like
layer.
It's very layered. So on the prolific offender front, it's good that we are doing something about prolific offenders, and the BC Prosecution Service has been given a new mandate that they have to say to the judge that they recommend that the person be held in custody.
Good.
Unless they're very, very satisfied the person is not going to go out and do something again to impact or attack a person or what have you.
Yeah.
So, of course you're going to support David Eby in that, but can we remember one thing?
Yes.
David Eby was both the Attorney General and the Housing Minister for many years, very powerful portfolios. And so we did presumably have the power to make these changes
before now.
Over the course
what
of the
was
last
the hurdle?
5 years.
What was the stumbling block?
Well,
why now
politics?
and not before?
Politics?
Politicians politicking, Linda Steele?
Right?
Really?
I think that it's...
But I want to, can you just reference the RCMP piece? Because
Okay.
we did have the awkward last week, right? Where we were talking about Surrey Police Services, RCMP, with this injection of a large amount of money.
What does it mean?
What does it mean, and where is it going?
Nobody's really entirely sure. I think that almost $250 million that the province announced yesterday, which was going to go to staff up vacancies with the RCMP at detachments across the province. And I was watching it thinking, what does that mean in terms of Surrey, where they're potentially going to get rid of the RCMP and replace them with the Surrey Police Service? Full disclosure, my husband is the chief. We've already discussed this.
Yep, that's why
I
asked.
don't really know what it means, but it does seem like of the almost 300 vacancies around the province, most of them are in rural areas. There are a lot in Surrey as well.
Yes.
The RCMP have not been super forthcoming about how many vacancies there are. Now the province knows how many there are. So anyway.
Something tells me we're going to continue talking about this, Linda Steele. In fact, we're going to continue with our next guest here on the program.
Because we're going to talk about these strata changes later in the show.
Yeah, we will.
I have opinions about that, but critics say...
Strap in, people. Linda has opinions on the strata thing.
Yeah,
so do I, by the
say
way.
They could make the problem worse. But up next, BC Liberal leader Kevin Falcon joins us to weigh in on the moves to tackle prolific offenders, the money spent to tackle crime.